my background is in pastoral care and language teaching. Hello. So in pastoral care and language teaching, I've worked as an RA and a housemaster in a boarding school, and part of my degree was ESOL teaching. I'll pass it on to Elma. Elma, do you want to come? So Elma's coming in as our facilitator education lead.
Yeah. Kia ora, everyone. I just want to say it's a pleasure to serving my community in whichever way I can. The best thing I know is to teach. So I would like to be the support in my community as as a teacher, teaching advisor. My background is teaching in South Africa. That's where I started teaching in a vocational college for 2 years. And then I started teaching, we moved to New Zealand in 2014, and I started my teaching career in New Zealand in 2018 after the long process of NZQA, although it's quite costly. And we have a similar background. I was also a residential supervisor in South Africa at the vocational college. So yes, that's me. Kendiel.
Hello everyone, it's nice to meet you all. This is my first time seeing all of you. My name is Kendiel. I'm originally from Eritrea and I came to New Zealand around 9 years ago. And I just graduated last year from Victoria with Public Policy and International Relations. And I just finished my internship with Ministry of Education 2 weeks ago. So I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
And we have Cinthia here as our kind of guest speaker today.
Hello everyone. Well, same. It is my pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'm really looking forward to connecting with you all and also to discuss this presentation that I prepared for our session today about New Zealand education. Just quickly, my role at the Ministry of Education is Senior Advisor Community Partnerships. So it's all about connecting with migrant and ethnic groups, communities, to get families closer to New Zealand education system, because that's very important that families can really understand what the New Zealand education is about, so then they can support their children better. So that's my role in the ministry, so it's lovely to meet you.
Perfect, yeah. And yeah, before we kick in, I'll just kick us off with a karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, he ake ana, te atakura, ke tio, ke kuka, ke hauhu, tihei, mauri ora. Cool. So it's a bit, just a kind of quick kind of rundown on the program. The Ministry of Education has a funding opportunity. So we had about $30,000 to run 10 community workshops. So we're starting off starting humble beginnings, starting from humble beginnings, and hopefully we can grow the kind of program from here. So what we're looking to do is, you're all right. So I think what we're going to run the program in is we're going to run it in 2 blocks. So we have 3 sessions this term, and then another 7 sessions in next term. So we're going to have a 3-week break for the school holidays, just to give everyone a break. What we're planning on doing is releasing the topics for the kind of coming weeks. So from this week, we've announced next week's topic of discussion and kind of presentation as well. And we're going to try and run them iteratively so we know what's coming up. And also what we really like is when the topics are released, for people to send in any questions or any topics, any aspects of that kind of conversation that they'd like to get more information on. So that's where we were sitting, and we're also looking at, we want to know if this time and if this kind of space works for everybody, because if we're happy to kind of do some reshuffling if Saturday doesn't work, or people prefer it in the week or later in the day, we're happy to try and accommodate that, probably from the next term onwards. Cool, so I think what we might do now is just take a quick pause, and then what we might do is if it's all good to take the children down to the Community Collective Hub, and that's all good, and then we will take off with Cinthia's presentation. Yeah. Cool.
because I'm originally from Chile, South America, and I've been here in New Zealand 9 years. Same as Elma, we're chatting like about 9 years. We arrived in 2014 with my husband and my little son. He was a year and a half by then. And when I arrived in New Zealand, I didn't know anything about nothing. Like I didn't know about education, health, everything was very new. I always say it was like starting from scratch, being a baby, learning the language, everything was a challenge for me. And particularly education, because I have my little son, I wanted to be able to know and to understand how I could support him throughout this journey. By that time, we didn't have this space like learning community hubs. So what I did, I was just trying to get information through the friends I was making, Googling some information on the internet, so just trying to get a bit of understanding in order to understand what were the alternatives I have for my children. So it wasn't easy, and I just wanted to point out that today we are, just very, very lucky and privileged to have this space, these learning community hubs, that the ministry and the government is actually paying attention to this and is finding these kind of opportunities for communities to come together and to understand the New Zealand education system in a safe space where we are all the same, we are all trying to understand and to make the best for our children. So that would be what I wanted to share with you, that I'm really privileged and I'm really happy to have this opportunity to connect with you today, and hopefully we can learn something new through this presentation. I'm also keen to hear your experiences. If you have any questions, just feel free to tell me, don't wait until the end, just feel free to discuss, and hopefully we can have a conversation as well throughout the presentation. Okay, so are you ready?
Yeah.
Good, let's get started. And Elma's going to be here supporting me as well because she got experience as a teacher, so we're going to be obviously complementing the discussion as well together. Okay, so the first one here is an overview about New Zealand education system, like a general picture. And New Zealand education is divided into three main systems. So we have the early level, early learning education, which is early childhood, that goes from year 0 to year 5. And then we move to the schooling system, which includes primary, intermediate, and secondary school, and tertiary education after they finish secondary. So what's important for you to see here is the diversity. If you can see here, we have many options. So starting from early learning, we have options where you can bring your child to a teacher-led center, like a kindergarten or childcare, where you go, you bring your children to the center, and then a licensed center and a certified teacher look after your children for the day or for the number of hours that you enroll your child in. Then you have other options where you can bring your child and you can stay with your child in the session, like play centers, play groups, and those are very good opportunities for you as parents to come and to participate in the education of your children. Those are also very good options. Then there are other services that are more Maori focused, that are particularly for our Maori whānau. And there is also one option that is called home-based education. I don't know if you heard about PORS or Bernardo's. So these are the education options where you can bring the children to a private home, and then there is a lady, a man, an educator that look after the children in a small space, like no more than 4 children at home. And that is also overseen by a licensed service to ensure that there is some learning going on while the children are going to those private houses. So those are, in general terms, the options you have for early learning. Then, if we move to the schooling system, that starts, your child can start school when they turn 5, but actually the education is compulsory when they turn 6 years old. So when they are 5, it's optional. You decide whether you want to keep your child at home or keep on sending them to a childcare or kindergarten. But once they turn 6, they have to go and to be enrolled in a school and an education center. That's compulsory. And the education in New Zealand is actually compulsory when your children are 6 till 16 years old. So that's when the education is compulsory. And you as parents have to ensure that your children are enrolled in a school and they're actually attending as much as they can, hopefully 100% of attendance. That's when then education is compulsory. So then again, in the schooling system, we include primary, intermediate, and secondary school, and again, we have different options. So we have public schools, where the education is free, you don't have to pay anything, and usually we have around 2 or 3 school options close to where we live. That's like very common. Then we have state integrated schools, which are schools that are usually Catholics or Montessori schools that have a special character, like religious or a philosophy that is particular for that school. And those state integrated schools charge some fees to the parents, attendance dues they call it. And then it's an option for you. If you are, for instance, Catholic, you can say, oh, I want my child to go to a Catholic school, and then you will have to pay a little bit of fee for that participation in the school. And then we have private schools. Those are schools that they charge a fee. It's usually very high. And that's because they have to pay for everything, infrastructure, everything that involves the education of the children, they have to pay it, and then that goes to the parents. The parents have to pay for those fees, and it's usually around 20,000, 25,000 per year. So it's like a very high fee. The other difference with public and private school is that public schools, they have to follow New Zealand curriculum in education, whereas private schools, it's optional. They may or may not follow New Zealand curriculum in education, because they're independent. They can choose to follow a different curriculum, like Cambridge and other international curriculums in education. So that's also another difference. And then when we finish the schooling system, which I said is compulsory from 6 to 16 years old, then they can move to tertiary education. And again, we have many options. So the children can go to university. We have 8 state universities here in New Zealand that are very well recognized internationally. Or there are also some industry training organizations, like we have Welltech here in Wellington, NZMA in Porirua. There are different options for your children to go and to develop their skills, whether it's a university or industrial training, where as you know, in New Zealand, you don't have to go to the university to be successful. You can follow another career training, like to be a hairdresser or to be an electrician, and you can still be very successful, run your own company. So there are still options, many options for your children to follow. So this is in terms of education, like in a big picture. Do you have any questions about this, what I've said at the moment?
Sorry, how many classes are there from primary to secondary?
So we have, I should have mentioned that. So they could start at year 0 or year 5, depending on the date of birth. So, but usually most children start year 1 and they go up to year 13. But as I said, education is compulsory until they are 16. So when they are here, they can choose whether they continue until year 12 or 13, or they can choose to get out of school and do some industrial training or competency-based training. But these are the years. So if you want your child to go to the university, they have to finish year 13 and get some credits, NCA credits. So education is very flexible here as well. You may see in our presentation. It might be different from the experience that we have from our own countries. In my country in particular, the education was very structured and everyone had to follow the same curriculum, and everyone was learning at the same level. Yes. But in here, we have a bit of fruit salad, a little bit of, very flexible. It's very flexible. You will see that everyone progresses at their own time. And that's why it's very important for parents to know and to understand how the system works, so then we can make the most of the education of our children. Good, Costa?
So when you say it's compulsory, what happens if you don't send your child to school?
Okay, that's a very good question, because as parents, we are legally obliged to send our children to school when they are 6 to 16 years old, within that time. If you are not sending your children to school, you will have to go to court. So it's actually very serious. And attendance, that's also very important, because the thing is that you have to enroll your children at school and also ensure that they go to school as much as they can. If you don't send your child for 20 days, consecutive days, like 4 weeks consecutive, without giving any explanation at school, any consistent justification of why you are not sending your child to school, then there is an attendance service that goes to your home, and they check first, why are you not sending your children at school? And then if you are not able to explain why, then you can go to court, and there is a fine that you have to pay, which is very high. It's about $5,000. That's my understanding. And then again, you have to make an effort to send your child to school, and if you don't make that, it's like a legal process that you have to follow. So it's very serious. Yeah. Anything else?
I'm curious, what happens at year 11 and 13 in terms of exit? Are those exams, national exams? Or
Yes, NCA levels. Those are the qualifications that, depending, we're going to review that later. But if they want to go to university, they have to complete the NCA level 3, and then that gives the credit for children to go to university. The NCA level 2 is the minimum requirement. We usually encourage children to complete at least the NCA level 2, because that's why employers look when they're looking for jobs at the end. So, but we're going to review the NCA levels later. Yeah. Good. So let's move to the next one.
Can I just maybe highlight there is also the option to homeschool your child.
Right.
However, there is a process where you have to satisfy the Ministry of Education's requirements for reasons why you have to homeschool, why you want to homeschool, and you also will have to present a curriculum which has to fulfill certain criteria or satisfy the ministry that your curriculum that you have built or created is going to accommodate the whole child's development.
Yeah, that's right, Elma. That's true. That's another option. It depends on your beliefs as family as well, because we have families that decide to do homeschooling with their children. But if you decide to do that, you need to have a permission from Ministry of Education, which is a letter of exception, because you are not sending your children at school. So they need to be authorized by the ministry. And then you can even get a small funding to help you with the cost of the materials when you are teaching your children at school. That's also a very good option, but it's a high level of responsibility, I must say, because you will have your children with you full time, and you have to ensure that you offer them opportunities for, to be able to socialize with other children, those opportunities that they are not having because they're not going to school. Yeah, so that's also, again, very good point. So now, based on our conversation, if we go to early childhood education from year 0 to 5, is it compulsory? That's a question for you.
No.
Do you have to send your children to early childhood education?
No.
If you don't want to? No, right? It's not compulsory. You won't go to court if you don't send your children to early childhood education. However, it is highly encouraged that every child is different, but usually when they turn 2.5, 3 years old, it is very encouraged that parents can send their children to early childhood education, because there are very good opportunities for them to build on their social skills, their language, their development, starting working on their independence. Many benefits for children to attend, but again, it's optional. You might decide to keep your child at home, and that's fine as well. Now, a way from the ministry to encourage the participation of children in early childhood education is through the 20 hours EC. Have you heard about these hours, 20 hours EC?
Yeah.
Yeah? So those are free hours that everyone is entitled to. And when your child turns 3 years old, you can send them to a daycare, kindergarten, and then those 20 hours are free. You don't have to pay. And that works for private education, because we have private centers or kindergartens, so you can use those 20 hours for everyone. Now, what happens if, for instance, you have to work full-time and you need a full-time center? So in that case, you can use the 20 hours, but you will have to top up and pay the difference. So that would, but it still helps with the, with the cost of the education. And also another alternative, if you have to work full time and if you have to send your children to full-time childhood education centers, and there is other options like the childcare subsidy from the Ministry of Social Development that, depending on your income, family income, they can also help you with paying the other 20 hours, like to top up with the difference. So there are options, and as I said, again, it is good if your children go to early learning centers, if that's something that you would like to consider. And it's your right as well to access those 20 hours. Now, Tefariki, does anyone know what Tefariki is? Rings the bell or something, Tefariki? No? It's new, right? New term. Okay, so Tefariki is the curriculum for early childhood education. Because when the children are in kindergarten or an early learning center, they are still following a curriculum that is instructed by the Ministry of Education, and it's called Tefariki. And this curriculum is all about education through play, so play-based education. So while the children are, participating and playing and exploring the world, the teachers in the kindergarten, they are asking questions and making sure that there is some learning going on at the moment where they are playing. So that's called the Tefariki, and it's very good because in New Zealand, we strongly believe that playing is key for the learning of the children. So if you go to a classroom in a daycare or kindergarten, you might see that the children are just playing, and you say, oh, they are not learning anything, they're just playing. They could do that at home, right? But they are actually learning because the teachers are following this curriculum that is Tefariki about play-based education. And there are also some schools that also do this play-based education in primary because it's easy for the children if they see the learning process through play. It's appealing, they enjoy the process. So that's why, the ministry and the education in New Zealand is making an effort to follow these methodologies to ensure that the children can enjoy attending the schools as well and make the most of that process. And as I say again, attendance at this level, early childhood education is optional. You don't have to send your children to the kindy or daycare if you don't want. Any questions about this level of education, early childhood education?
I have a question. So
Yeah.
when I was looking for a kindergarten for my daughter, I got put into a waiting list by a lot of these service providers. What options do I have if I can't find a space and I'm on a waiting list?
For kindergarten?
Yeah.
So they are usually, did you go to more than one, or you went to only one kindergarten?
I went to more than one.
More than one, and they were all full, you didn't have. So how old was your daughter?
4.
4, so you could have used those 20 hours. So even if you wanted to, you could have sent her to a daycare. Daycare are private education, but you can use those 20 hours for free, because this is also an option, because those 20 hours apply for whether it's private, public, you can still use it. And that could have been also an option. Did you visit any daycare?
I eventually found one. I was just asking because there was a difficult situation where I needed to go to work, but I couldn't find daycare for her. So
Oh yeah, because it's usually, by the way, I also have a daughter, she's 2 years old, and you usually have to go into a waiting list because there is a high demand. Yeah, and then they will call you. So that's why we always say try to, go to more than one center, and then as soon as space is available, they call you. But usually it's not from one day to another. You have to wait, and you have to plan this in advance. So if you are planning to send your child to an early center, even 3 months before, you go and you enroll and you put your name on the waiting list. Yeah.
So it's not the same as like primary where the service providers within your residential zone.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Okay.
It's not the same. Yeah, and in school they have to give you an enrollment opportunity if the school is within your zone, which is something we're going to discuss as well. Yeah, but for early learning, that's a very good point. There is a very high demand. It's not easy to find a place from one day to another, but the key here is time. So if you're planning to send your child, just prepare yourself with 3 or 4 months in advance go and explore the centers and put your name on the waiting list, and then you may be given an opportunity. Okay? Good question. Okay, so we move to the next one. It's about primary, intermediate, and secondary education. So again, have you heard about zoning? So the one in the corner in there. Does anyone have an idea of what zoning means?
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, I have an idea. I think it means that obviously depending on where you're staying, you have a right to take your child to that particular school that's within the zone.
Perfect. That's it. Yeah. So zoning is an enrollment scheme run by the Ministry of Education just to ensure that schools are not overcrowded. Because usually where you live, you have 2 or 3 public schools. There are options for you, but the ministry wants to ensure that we don't have 1,000 children in one school and 200 in the other, when there is an infrastructure that can have more children. So that's why they created this zoning, this enrollment system, which means that if where you live you have 2 schools, those schools are within your zone, and if you go there, the enrollment of your children are guaranteed. So you go, you say, I want my child to be part of the school, and they have to guarantee the enrollment for your child. The benefits of this is that because it's close to where you live, when your children go to those schools, they get to connect. Hi, hello, hi. So we are already starting, but sorry. Yeah, so that means that the benefits of having your child in a school that is within your zone is that they are going to get to connect with people from their neighborhood. So it's good for community building because they're going to get to know their neighbors, the people that live close to them. And also, obviously, accessibility is very close to where you live, so you can even walk to school, you don't have to drive. Those are very good things about the zoning. But again, you have to know that there are schools that are not within your zone, that we call out-of-zone schools. And if you want to, you can also go and put your name in the waiting list, and then they may or may not give you an opportunity, depending on if they have capacity for an additional child. But in those out-of-school zone, the enrollment of your children are not guaranteed. That's the difference. Now, the thing when you are choosing a school for your children, it's very important for you to know that every school is different in New Zealand. As we said before, kind of fruit salad, every school is different, they all have different philosophies, they work the New Zealand curriculum on a different way. Some schools you may find that have a strong focus on music or environment. So every school is different, and it's very important for you to go and to visit schools and to get a sense if that school is actually what you want for your child. And then you can choose. And then, as I said, it might be that none of the school within your zone you feel is the right fit for your family, and you might want to explore other schools that are out of the zone. It's also your right. You can also go and put your name there and see if you can get an enrollment opportunity for your child. Okay, so that's zoning. Is clear about zoning? Good, very good.
A question.
Yes.
Are there any guidelines, like if I move out of the zone? Like
So once you enroll your child in a school that's within your zone, then if you move to another place, you can still keep on sending your child to that school, because when you initially enrolled, you were within the zone. But now, obviously, then you might consider the commute time, it's a long distance. But because you enroll initially your child within the zone, it's all good. Yeah. So it's just being in the right place at the beginning, and then you can move. I heard one family that moved. They were renting and moved to another suburb just to enroll their child to that school, and then they moved. There are always ways that you can.
Okay, so it's legal.
Yeah, but again, it's always good to build community and to know the families within your neighborhood. So that's also good. Yeah. The other thing, a question for you: is it compulsory the education at this age?
Yes.
Yes. You remember from what age until what age?
Yeah, 5, 6,
6 to 16, right? Yeah, 5 is still not compulsory. 6 to 16 years old, the children have to go to school. That's the main takeaway from that part. Learning support. So learning support is a service that we have available at the Ministry of Education for children that have special learning needs. So if you have maybe thought about your child and they might have some learning needs and they need support, with the acquisition of the information, anything that might be of your concern, you can have a discussion with the school teacher, and then together we can organize an assessment for your child. Usually every school is able to offer that for your children. And then if the assessment confirms that the children need additional support from specialists, they can be referred to the learning support team at Ministry of Education. And we have a team of psychologists, speech language therapists, we have occupational therapists, a long list of specialists that can offer support to your children for free. And this is available and it's good for you to know. But usually everything starts by you having a conversation with your school teacher and ensuring that an assessment can be organized for your child. Okay, so that's also good for you to know. Any questions about the learning support? It's clear? It's always good to know that we have that kind of support available for free as well, that you don't have to pay for that. Then we have the national curriculum. This is important to know because in New Zealand we don't have textbooks. I don't know if in Africa you have textbooks. In my country we have that. The surprise is the same, right? Yeah, from the ministry they were sending books to the schools, and then everyone had the same book, and we were following that. So in New Zealand we don't have that, but we have the New Zealand curriculum, and that's kind of the standard that every school, public and state integrated school, they have to follow. The curriculum, they have different subjects where the children have to learn from, like mathematics, languages, literature. And the thing is that the ministry send and establish this curriculum to the schools, but then every school decides how to teach those elements to the children. So again, that's what I told you, every school is different, they have different philosophies. But they have to actually ensure that the children are progressing in terms of the New Zealand curriculum. Now, how they teach that might be different from one school to another. Yes, some schools use the play-based learning methodology, others are more like focused on the scientific part. So every school is different. I mean, very important to visit the schools, to connect with the teachers and see how they teach methodologies they are using. Okay? We have another question there. And then we have the National Certificate of Education and Achievement, NCA level. This is relevant when your children go to secondary school, hi. And yes?
Sorry, before you go,
yeah.
On the national curriculum, is the grading the same? Nationwide?
Grading, that's a very good question. Because we don't usually grading, there is not a concept as such. They move through the curriculum levels. There are 8 levels that the children can move, and then every child moves at a different level. So then it's the judgment of the teacher to see if the children have, acquired the information they need to move to the next level. But there aren't exams or tests as we used to have in our country. Yeah, so that's different. Again, very flexible, very focused on the children and how they're moving through the education. The only part when they get actual exams is when they move to NCA levels, and that is when it starts to get more similar to what we are used to, the tests and exams and the grades and all of that thing. But yeah, again, very flexible, and usually the curriculum focus on the children and how the children is moving and achieving those learning. So they are not comparing your child to the others. There are, rankings. I don't know if you had rankings, like you said, first place, second place of the class, and all of that. So we don't have that here. It's not a competition. Everyone moves at their own pace, which is also beautiful, right? Because your children are not being compared to others. It's not like I'm a loser, I'm not actually learning. So everyone is moving at their own pace and progressing through the process. So you might have a class with children in level 1 of the curriculum or level 3, but they are all in the same class. and they are all learning from each other. Yeah, so that's good. I don't know if it's good, you think it's good, but I think that's how it is. And I might say that New Zealand education, it might be different from what we are used to, but that does not mean that it's worse or best, or like it's just different, and that's why it's important for us to understand it, and then we can make the most of it. Because again, our participation as parents in the education of our children is crucial if you want them to succeed and to move and to progress. So that's also very important. So this is the New Zealand curriculum. As you see, we have all these different subjects of social sciences, technology, mathematics, learning languages, etc. But what is important in New Zealand is the values that you can see here at the core. So thinking, managing themselves, participating and contributing, those are the most important concepts for New Zealand education. Instead of, they're not really worried about children memorizing information. That's not what the focus is. It's more that while the children are learning all these different subjects, mathematics, English, they're actually building on those values, such as thinking, the critical thinking. Like these are the things that are very important for New Zealand curriculum. Those values that your children can acquire, that they are able to manage themselves instead of memorizing or reciting something by memory. They care about the values. That's the main thing about the New Zealand curriculum. And then you will see that when they are in primary school, they don't have tests. They learn usually mathematics and English. Obviously, they learn to read and write, all of that. But the main focus is on having those crucial conversations in the classroom, that critical thinking that is very important for the teachers to develop with the children. And for the children to have a voice and to be able to speak and to be confident. And those are the skills that the New Zealand curriculum encourages in the children. Okay, so again, these are the different areas of the curriculum. And this is the curriculum levels. Probably you've seen this when you receive the school reports at the end of the year. And then you can see how your children are moving. There are 8 levels. And again, you might have a child that is in year 2 that is actually working at the beginning of level 1 or moving to beginning of level 2. So every child is different regardless of the year level. So you might have a child in year 3 and they might be working in the curriculum level 1 or 3 or 4. So everything is very different. The other thing for you to know is that the curriculum is being refreshed at the moment. So the curriculum, as we review it, is going to be updated because New Zealand is changing. So the curriculum we are working at the moment was created in 2007. So it's been almost 15 years since that. And New Zealand, obviously, it's different. We have many new people in the country, migrants, former refugees. We had a pandemic that was across that. So there was a need for the curriculum to be reviewed and to be updated and to be able to be responsive to the needs of our children and families. So for that, the curriculum is being reviewed at the moment. And it's going to be implemented by 2025. And the current curriculum, is going to be more inclusive and more responsive to the different needs of our children. So that's good for us, being migrants, former refugees, because our cultures are going to be implemented in the curriculum as well. So you might see some more relevancy for our languages and stuff like that, which is very good. And also the focus on Maori tradition and culture, which is also very important here in New Zealand, embracing the Maori culture. So this is about the curriculum. Any questions about the curriculum? Is it clear? Yes? Yes, no? All clear? Are you happy with the New Zealand curriculum? That's the main thing. Okay, so it's going to be changed. Very good information, considering that our views, our diversity is going to be incorporated in the new curriculum. There is going to be a session as part of this learning hub that is going to be just in curriculum, and then we are going to have an expert talking about this New Zealand curriculum topic in detail, and then you can ask all your questions about that. So now, NCA levels, as we discussed, so this takes relevancy when the children go to secondary school. Okay, so when they are in primary school, nobody really pay attention to NCA level, but when they move to secondary school, from year 11, 12, and 13, this takes relevancy. It's very, very important. Now, the NCA level works in 3 levels. So we have NCA level 1, NCA level 2, and NCA level 3. And in here, as we said, then exams and tests take relevancy. So every year the children have to take exams, and then the grading system is based in credits. Okay, it's not like ABC, it's credits. So every child has to achieve 80 credits in order for them to move to the next level in the NCA level. Now, what this is important about NCA level, sorry, this is going on, is that if they are able to achieve NCA level 1, this will provide them with like a solid foundations, like general knowledge and skills. But when they achieve level 2, this is the minimum qualification they need, usually for jobs. When your children, when they are looking for jobs, the employers will look at the curriculum and they are looking at see that they have achieved the NCA level 2, which is very, very important. And also, if they want to go to industrial training, they have to have the NCA level 2. And then the NCA level 3 is for the university. If your children want to go to university, they have to achieve this level. It's important for you as parents to know about NCA because the children were going to be given the opportunity to choose different courses. And then depending whether if they want to go to university, you will need to know, okay, my child wants to be, I don't know, a psychologist. So then it's good for them to take these courses that are going to, provide that learning for them to actually follow that career pathways. So the options are very diverse again, and you as parents need to guide your children in when choosing the subjects and the courses they are going to take, because they can choose. You remember, Kendiel, what were the different courses? And
So just to give you a brief,
Yeah.
year 9 and 10 is like a trial out for the children to see what interest they have, like different subjects. There's like around 9 subjects, so you have to use them, they're compulsory.
Yeah.
And from there, from year 11, you start choosing subjects. You only have 3 compulsory subjects, but you start choosing based on what you want to do or what you're interested more. So if you know your child during year 9, if you understand what they understand, what they like more, you can help them in year 11 and year 12 and 13 where to focus, the areas that they need to focus more, and that could lead to go to uni or other careers they want to take in life.
Yeah, so it's good for us to know. And again, we are going to have a session focused just on NCA level. We're going to bring an expert from the ministry, I hope. We're going to discuss that with Eddie. And then that person will be able to answer all your questions about NCA level. Because we want you to know, even if you don't have children at secondary level, high school, it's good for you to know beforehand. So then when they achieve that level, when they get to high school, you know how to support them and how to, to provide the best guidance. Because it's not just taking the courses that are easier, because sometimes like, oh, I'm going to take dance because it's easy. We want them to actually take the courses that will help them to get to the university if they want to, or to the industrial training if they want to follow industrial training. Okay? So that's about NCA levels. Oh yes, Kosa.
So I'll be asking some questions that
Yes.
don't reflect what I think, but what I know the community might think.
Yeah.
So this one is like, we are talking about career choice, right?
Yeah.
And shaping that is part of the parents' kind of prerogative. And maybe the teachers have some form of influence as well.
Mm.
Right. So what if I want my child to be in this particular profession that I
Yeah.
think will be good for them,
Mm.
and they do not want to do that?
Mm. That happens very often. Yeah. So that's a work you have to do, obviously, with your child. Getting to know each other. Obviously, you is your child, but having those conversations, that deep conversation, because at the end, it's also what will make your child happy, right? and finding the right balance in terms of what would be best for their career development and their future, but also what makes them happy. And as I said before, in New Zealand, you don't have to go to the university to be successful. There are other options. Very successful people have, they run their own business. They are computer and building or construction, these kind of areas, and they are still very successful. But I don't know you, but at least from my cultural background in my country, there was the thing that you had to go to university to be successful and to make your parents happy, because they wanted to be proud of you. My child is a doctor, is a lawyer. But changing that, thinking, because in New Zealand, you can still be successful if you are a hairdresser and you have your own hairdressing center. So it's just being flexible and understanding as well what are the options and what will make your child happy. But obviously there's a lot of conversation and being a bit flexible and understanding what are their passions as well, because we want them to be happy at the end, right? Because there are many cases of children just wanting to make their parents happy, go to university, study, to be a doctor, and at the end they are not really happy, or they fail because it's not what they actually wanted to do.
In other instances, there's also the peer pressure for their friends are sort of influencing them to
Yeah. But again, communication is key, and also aspiring, getting to know the friends of your children, so just connecting, see where are they, because you're right, they also influence their decisions. So if you are close to their friends, you can see as well what are they thinking, and maybe just host and open those meaningful conversations about career pathway. But that's a very critical stage in the lives of your children, where they have to choose what are they going to study, if they are going to study, or if they want to start working. So get ready for that if you're not in there. That's a very important part.
And also career advisors. So each school has a career advisor where they work with students and parents if there's an issue where student doesn't want to do a subject and the parents want her to do some specific thing. They can talk to the career advisor, and they would have a communication on how they try to explain how important this career is to the parents, so they can come to a common ground. And it's very important. And each school in New Zealand has a secondary school has a career advisor inside. So
That's very true, because this, what we're discussing, is very common. That happens a lot. Parents wanting their children to do something different. So that's why having the support from someone external as well, it's very good. And it's good that you can find that at school, in the high school or college. So that's also a good option. Thanks for mentioning that, Kendiel.
This question.
Yeah.
On the same line now, I'm thinking about the teachers and the school influencing the child. Maybe a child wants to focus on or select subjects that they're not very good at. Are they discouraged from that? Is that part of the process? Maybe I want to become a doctor, but I'm very bad at my science subjects, and I really want to still continue pursuing the science subject, and my parents also encourage me to do that.
Yeah.
Does the school come in and they're like, you're not really good at this, probably try something else?
Yeah, I mean, they have the option to...
do you want to
No, you can
so
you have
from
it
my
here.
experience, what I've seen is because English is my first language, so when I first came here, I had no English at all.
Mm-hmm.
So those teachers would suggest you, this is better for you, or this is better for you, without even knowing you, because they think they're helping you. But sometimes that's why it's very important to understand your child and to know your child's capability, because sometimes the teachers might not understand them. They'll be like, no, you're not going to do this subject. I have been told I cannot do history, chemistry, and I have been told not to do those subjects, and I just talked to my dean, and I was able to do those subjects, but there are students who were told no, and they couldn't do those subjects. So it's very important that you, on your child's side, always, if they want to do something, just help them be there and talk to their teachers as well. But that is very possible, especially being a refugee or migrant background. They will say, you can't do this, or you can do this.
And I think some people don't learn well in a school environment that suddenly get to university, and I've had friends who struggled through, especially on those kind of medical and those science kind of pathways, weren't the best and struggled with the school structure, but as soon as they got the freedom, and I guess the way the university education was structured, did really, really well. So I think it's one of those things of, it's again trying to have those conversations about if a child's kind of focus is there, what supports the school can put in place to make sure that they can get to that kind of point where they do know, where they are able to make the decision of whether or not they feel like they are capable to go down those pathways.
Very important, yeah. And if they, and ultimately, if they want to take a course, even though they may think I'm not really good, but if they want to follow it, it's just about finding the support for them to actually achieve those outcomes that they want to. Yeah, but as a mom as well, I would say don't let anyone to say your child that they cannot achieve something, because we know that they can, and we as parents are there to support them, right? And even if we need to find external support, we will find it, but it's just encouraging them to follow what they really want to, and what we know is right for them as well. There was any other question?
Yes. So I was just going to ask, how exportable is this qualification to maybe Australia or other countries overseas? Is it easy to just do a lateral move?
That's a very good question, because these qualifications are for New Zealand. However, if your children want to study in an international university, go to Australia or UK, wherever they want to go, there are some ways that they can convert those qualifications in order for them to, to have the university entry at different universities internationally. But this will open the doors primarily for your child to go to New Zealand tertiary education. Yeah. It will be a bit more complex. That's why sometimes parents decide to send their children to private education, because in there they can achieve international standards, like Cambridge curriculum. Then they can go directly to Cambridge University in the UK. There is also a way to do it through our NCA levels, but it takes longer. It's a conversion depending on the country they want to study and all of that. But, yeah.
How long?
How long?
Yeah.
The conversion?
Yeah.
It varies depending on the university that you want do you want your children to go to Australia?
5 years.
Oh no, no, it shouldn't be that long. It shouldn't be that long. Yeah. But this is primarily for New Zealand. Just so you know.
Another question?
Yeah.
I think he's echoing what's in my mind, in the sense that, like, we are all immigrants, right?
Mm.
We all thought we were going to stay
Yeah.
in Zimbabwe, Chile, Eritrea, whatever. But we've wound up here, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're here, you want to make the transition easier. So you have to do something. So to your point, you talked about the fruit salad nature of this education system, and we as immigrants, I don't think we want our children caught up in the whole. It's good. It offers opportunities, this fruit salad education. But then that's where I think I resonate with this question that, because we left from somewhere, our kids might decide to leave from somewhere. But we want them to settle quicker than we did.
Yeah.
So whilst it's great NCEA for New Zealand, yeah, I don't know.
You're worried that they will be.
Yeah, that's it. You don't like she came and you're a qualified teacher in South Africa, and then you have to spend 4 years getting it in a QA. I'm sure that must have done something to your mind.
Yeah, the assessment process was costly, so I could not afford.
Yes,
firstly, the assessment process costly, and there's a whole lot of documents that needs to be sourced from South Africa in order to,
And no one told you that, isn't it? You came here and all of a sudden you thought your qualification was okay, and then you come here, wait, NZQA. So I guess
you have to assess to see the different. But that's a standard process that you will encounter in any country. I must say, if it's Australia, probably it will be easier.
So I'm not sure I'm not 100%. I'm gonna have to set this up for NZQA, but for Victoria, we'll take those. If you get a diploma from there, it's supposed to be just New Zealand, but in Commonwealth you can work as well as qualified. So Commonwealth like Canada, Australia, and UK, you can work in the US as well. So there's 5 countries you can work there, pretty much like it is a good qualification to work there, but other countries it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that's what I assume was NZQA as well, but I'm not 100% sure. Probably that's
one thing we need to search out.
We will follow up. I can send you more information later. I will confirm that. So yeah, that's good to know. And again, always keeping in mind that depending on the career, because if your child achieve a degree as a doctor here, then obviously those areas are usually more difficult to convey in different countries, and they will, regardless of the level and everything, they still need to do some assessment and make sure that, because it's health, nurses or doctors, those are the most complicated one. And also education, because every country is different, right? So they need to ensure that, the standard of education that you had, it was actually, equitable to New Zealand education.
That's good.
But you achieved. How long did it take you actually to get the conversion of the?
It took me, I came in 2014, and I think for my first year, I first needed to get that working. I think my residency process took a while. And while I was doing that, I have submitted my documents to NZQA. It probably took me about 9 months. So it did not take me that long. I did come quite prepared, because I did do a bit of research before I came. So yes, but it was just costly, You need to work to get the money to get your qualifications assessed. Yeah. And I could not work for the first 6 months at least, Yeah.
Interesting to know, but we will follow up on that information.
I guess it's also important for those of our community who are coming here to know these things in advance. Because there are expectations, like you say, you think I already have this, I just walk in and everything is hunky-dory. So you need to go through all that process. It will cost you this much, and it will take this long.
Yeah.
And it's also very important for
us to know, right? Yeah, definitely. I will follow up with that information in terms of NCA levels and how long might it take when they go to different countries. And then, I will send you more information about that later with Eddie.
I think, and I know from my side of things, I know from moving from high school to university, obviously the international qualifications like IB, International Baccalaureate, and Cambridge are more accepted more widely, but I don't think that NCEA has been. I know a few people who've attended university in the States or in America using the NCEA credits, that system. I think it just probably, again, it's more about, I think it's just trying to prove that there's an equivalency, there's an equivalent standard that you can measure it to. And I think probably to Australia and maybe the UK as well, because of the A-level system, I think there's enough similarities that that's not the most difficult, I think, depending on country. But I think, it does vary from country to country. But I think it is very reasonable for people who have come through the NCEA level 1, 2, and 3 to be able to go to international universities.
Okay.
Good.
So quick one. Is there a correlation between this and the 11, 12, and 13?
Oh, so every year they have to achieve credits. And then 80 credits at the moment, because again, the NCA levels are changing. So there are some updates that are going to be happening in 2025. I think that's the year that we're expecting the changes to be completely implemented. But every year, the children, they have to achieve 80 credits. And then they move to the next one, and then they can take 20 credits from the previous year and achieve 60 credits in the next one. So then it's a correlation. So every year they are kind of interconnected with the courses they are taking. But again, this is changing. It's going to be different. At the moment, they have to achieve 80 credits for each level, and then it's going to be 60 only. And it's going to be a strong focus on mathematics and literature as well. Because at the moment it was like more optional, but then it's going to be more strong focus on that core information, core knowledge about New Zealand education. But we are going to have an expert that is going to come and talk about this in detail, and then you can see the differences. Again, it is changing because we want to be more responsive to the needs of the children and to be able to include the different needs, the different perspectives, and it's going to be better. That's our hope. That's going to be better and easy to navigate, because at the moment it's a bit confusing for parents also to understand, but it's going to be better after those changes are going to be implemented. But we want you to know about this, and we want you to hear from the experts. So we are going to have a session just for you to focus on this NCA level. So please come, because it's going to be very, very important for you to understand this in detail.
I think level 1, 2, and 3 roughly line up. So year 11 would be level 1, year 12 would be level 2, year 13 would be level 3. But some schools will offer the ability to, like when I was at school, when I was in year 10, we started doing some level 1 credits. So I think some schools will offer that ability to kind of do credits between. So it's not strictly set to those years, but that's the kind of general flow of it.
Yeah. And these are also optional again, because as I said, your child can leave school when they are 16 and then they cannot do this. If they decide not to do it, it's optional again. But obviously if you want them to go to university, you will have to ensure that they can actually achieve in all the levels. Okay? Good. So this is just, I don't know if there is any other comments, differences that you can see about the education in your country and the education in New Zealand. Do you think it's different?
Yeah,
Very, right? From one extreme to the other. And again, different doesn't mean that it's worse or best. It's like different, and we're going to make the most of, of the system if we are able to understand it. Okay? Good. So the next one is for you to know that New Zealand schools are self-managed, which means that the Ministry of Education does not run schools. Okay? So the schools are independent and they are managed by their school boards. They are the ones that administer the schools and decide how are they going to work on the curriculum and what are the activities they are going to offer to the children. The school boards are very, very important because they actually decide how the school is going to work for your children's education. So I don't know if you are aware, but the school board, they have an election process every 3 years. There is an election process and it's run by voluntary parents that belongs to the school and then they want to participate and contribute to the children's education. So every year, every 3 years, there's a chance for you as parents to put your name up and say, I want to be part of the board, and actually have a voice and be able to influence and to bring your perspectives into the education and the way that the school will be run. So it's very important to be aware of this because, and also for you to vote when there is a school board election process, to have your say about this, because they are going to decide how the school is going to work with the children in order for them to achieve and to move through the curriculum levels. And interesting that the ministry doesn't actually influence in the way that the school works. We are just there to support them and to ensure that if there is any problem, then is when we go and they say, okay, this is what the legislation say, we go to the court, this kind of stuff. And also we are kind of supporting with other things like learning support opportunities for the children, and also making sure that the schools are following the New Zealand curriculum, the public and state integrated schools, but independent from the schools. Which is also a difference from my country. The ministry was sending the textbook to the schools. They were like they had the power. In here, no, the schools have the power. So that's also very different. And again, teaching and learning in New Zealand, as we say, there might be different between schooling in New Zealand and your experience in other places. New Zealand education is hands-on. You may see the children, as I said, they are not memorizing the content by heart. It's about hands-on experience, practicing, making, getting that real-life experience. That's how New Zealand education works. Usually there isn't much homework. Have you noticed that? The homework in the schools? How was that in your country? Did you get a lot of homework when you were through until university? Yeah. In New Zealand, there isn't a policy that say all schools must have at least 1 or 2 homework, activities to the children, because again, it depends on what you want. I always say, if you as a parent consider that doing homework is important, then you have the chance to have a chat with the teacher and ask for worksheets and homework. It's again your role as parent to provide this opportunity for children. But in New Zealand, usually because children go to school from 9 to 3 p.m., it's a long time, and then after that it is encouraged that children can have any sport or extracurricular activities. So there isn't much time for children to actually do homework and study after that. But again, you as parents, it's your choice, it's your call. If you want to provide this opportunity to your children, you can have a chat with your school teacher and work together in a worksheet and get this opportunity for your children. Okay?
Actually, that's really interesting because even though there is no homework for students, people who are capable of doing it, they do send their kids to after school, like Kemon.
Yeah.
And also a lot of people here, they grow up in the education system, they know how to work, they do support their kids at home, they do read a lot of books with them, they do work a lot of activities with the kids.
Yeah.
So for us, I think it's better, one, to ask for that paper to be working at home with.
Yeah.
Families, they can do that. And the second thing is, I'm not sure if the ministry got any support if communities want to organize their own after school activities for their children, or Saturday program, or holiday program. And I think that is that's where it makes a big difference between the immigrant and the refugee kids and the rest, because they already got support, they know the system, how to navigate, and they got capacity to send their kids to after schools like Kimon.
That's right. That's a very good point, because actually from the ministry there is a funding opportunity that could go to communities that is called study centers. And that's for communities to come together and to work and to support their children learning process. So that's something that we can also discuss and maybe even create this opportunity for the community after we finish with the learning hubs. That could be also like a nice transition and an opportunity for our community to come together and to support this learning process for the children. So again, if you don't ask, you don't get it. It's about knowing what are the options, and then when you know, you say, I ask, I want to have this learning support center for my community, and we can work a way through where you can get the funding opportunities for this. Yeah, so it's about knowing the options, because there are, and then you can make it work for yourself. That's good. And the other thing about New Zealand education is that we say the classroom are a workshop, and as I said, the children move at their own pace. So there isn't a competition here. It's not like you are best than the other. Every child has different learning and different talents, and we want to explore those and to encourage and to acknowledge the different talents of your children, and just to ensure and to build on that self-confidence as well, which is also very beautiful, right? Because it's not just mathematics and language or literature. It's also about exploring those other talents or other options that also make your children very special and unique, which is also good. Okay, so this is just for you to know that we have the Education and Training Act. This is the legal framework that underpins our New Zealand education. Because even though it's very flexible, but we still have guidelines, we have a legislation, it's also a very serious process. So this Education and Training Act seeks to give our children and young people a high quality, safe, cultural, respectful, and inclusive education. And this is very important. And this means that it is the obligation of every school in New Zealand to ensure that they provide an inclusive space for the children, particularly as migrants or former refugees. We know that it's our right to actually, ask the school to offer these inclusive opportunities, because they're obligated to do it. This act, they have to provide an inclusive space that actually acknowledges the diversity of our children, and where everyone can feel welcome and safe from bullying, from racism. So that's our right as parents. And there is a legislation that regulates this. And if we notice that the school is actually not compliant and is not actually being inclusive with our families, then we can talk about that. And then you can tell me, or find a way that we can discuss this, because it's an obligation that every school in New Zealand offer this experience for our children. It's a safe, inclusive education where everyone is welcome. Okay? Also, this Education and Training Act regulates things like the zoning, that we say that every school have to ensure that the children that live close to the area, they have an enrollment guaranteed. And also the religious instruction to be an optional. So our schools are secular, the public schools, there is no religion in there involved. You can find that on state integrated schools. And this is optional again, that no one is forced to follow a particular religion or philosophy. It's an option for your child. And if a public school decides to provide religious instruction, a class like 1 hour class on religion, then they have to ask your permission. You have to give the permission for your child to attend that class. It's optional. You can't be forced, and your child can be forced to attend a class on Catholicism or religion or any particular philosophy.
What about the general stuff? I mean, just, I don't know how to put it this. Look, this is a country that was built in colonization. This is the culture and the religion that came with that colonization is the dominant force when it comes in the education space as well. So the kids, it's not going to be directly saying a 1 hour class, religious class, but you can see it from time to time how that religious sentiment can be a bit, and you can see it when you go to school and how the kids at kindy level and everywhere, they can get exposed to a lot of these religious things. And okay, example, I'm a Muslim, my daughter coming and singing a Christmas thing is a bit questionable as a Muslim for me. So that means they are doing that. Those teachers are there very lovely, and I know them how much they also encourage those kids. But that is the education system that we have. What is the ministry's role in that regard?
So in that regard, as I said, this is optional. You can be forced, your child can be forced to participate in an activity that has any connotation that is, religious activities like Christmas celebrations. It's optional. Again, you as parent can decide whether your child participates or not, and you can have a conversation with the teacher regarding this, because it's your right to keep your children outside those activities. I
was going to say, is it going to be the same for this new age thinking now that, me and him are now, yes. So, because, all right, you can draw the line. You've said the system will say that
it has to be inclusive,
and but and the system has said you can say your child no Catholicism, no, he doesn't have to listen to the Quran, no, he doesn't. What about this new age thinking? Is it the same for that new age to say no, I don't want my child?
Well, that's actually a very big topic, and we have within the New Zealand curriculum what we call the RSE, which is Relationship and Sexuality Education, which actually covers these topics like gender equality, this kind of stuff. And again, the school, they have to do a consultation with the families every 2 years to decide what are they going to actually be teaching their children in regards to these matters. And then you have your chance to have a voice and say, I agree or I don't agree, but it's part of the New Zealand curriculum, so they have to cover these topics. Now, what they actually cover on the classes, that's something that you can discuss in the consultation you have a voice in. But again, we want to be inclusive, and we want to represent every family, that every family can have the opportunity to have their say on what their children are going to be learning, particularly in this relationship and sexuality education. So it's important for you to participate in that one and see what are they actually going to be teaching, because if you don't agree, you also have a chance to take your child out of that class. That is also very, very important for you to know, because they are going to be offered this opportunity at school. They want, as part of the curriculum, they want the children to learn about sexuality and safe ways, and they can, develop these kind of interactions. But again, you as parents, you have to, to participate in the consultation, have your say, and if you are not happy with it, discuss some alternative options for your children.
And we're going to explore this. This is we've got a whole session planned on this for the 1st of April. Yeah. So that's going to be a big topic, and I think that's one of our bring someone in to speak to that specifically.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing I wanted to say about religion is that also it's your right for you as parent, now that comes Ramadan, for instance, to have a chat with a teacher and find out ways that they can actually respect and embrace that, and see how they can actually make this a part of the school for children to understand what actually Ramadan means. It's not that we want everyone to convert to Muslim, right? But we want your children to actually feel included in the education, and that they don't feel different because they're going through Ramadan or their families are participating in Ramadan. So this is also an opportunity for families to have a chat with the teacher and to bring those different perspectives and cultural celebrations and religions, so then everyone can have, their representation at school. Because we know Ramadan is a very important date, and we know that usually children don't participate on the fasting, but still the families, some of them do, right? Yeah, so it's good for teachers to know as well, right? Because if they are doing, physical activities, they might be low energy. This kind of stuff you can discuss as well with the teacher. And they would like to hear about that. That's the thing. They want to hear from parents. What are their needs? What are the things that are important for families?
Just to add to that, so I was doing an orientation, and there were a few people who were concerned about the religion. They wanted to send their kids to a Catholic school, but they don't want to participate in the Christian. So what they were told was the teachers had a discussion with their parents, and they said, yes, we can do a religion class for them, but because they're Muslim, they're going to study about the Islam religion. They're not going to take part of that. So it was more work from their parents, because they had to talk to their parents what you want your child to learn. You're going to have to do more things to help your child, but they do offer those things as well. Some schools, if you have a chat with them, just say, I don't want them to participate in Christianity. I strictly just want Islam. Can you do that? And most of these schools do. Some might not, but most they do offer that option as well.
Yeah. So what I'll go across all this conversation today is that it's very important the communication with the school. So it's important that they know you, they know your family, they know your cultural backgrounds. And if you work together with the school, you can help in building a very inclusive place for your children education. The schools, they want to hear from you. That's their expectation. They want parents to participate. They want parents to have a voice, to participate in the consultations. So yeah, that's our chance to actually make a difference for our children, building that connection with the schools, getting to know our teachers, the principals. They should be open to this. That's what the regulation, actually, the Education and Training Act dictates for them. They have to offer these opportunities for parents to have a voice and to participate.
If I can just add, sorry, did you want to speak?
Go ahead, please.
Okay. If I can just add to that, that is why New Zealand education has its flaws, but it also has its advantages, because we are able to build a relationship and have a direct relationship with the teacher. So a parent's first point of call would be the child's classroom teacher, if it's a primary school teacher. If it's a secondary school teacher, the parent's first point of call is the tutor teacher. In high school, from year 8 until year 13, the child would have the same tutor teacher. It means that person goes with the child from his first year in high school until he finishes high school, which is year 13. So that is the person to connect with first if you want to build that relationship. So relationship building with the classroom teacher is really important.
That's key.
And teachers do feel sometimes overwhelmed because, we deal with like 25 plus individuals in the classroom. So, but I'm sure, like what we do in our everyday life, how do we build relationships? We give and we take. Yeah, we accept sometimes the teacher may not have time for us. However, there are various ways that we can become involved by actually being visible in school meetings. The board, there's also what we call the Association of Parents and Teachers, where parents can be, it's unlimited. You could just join in and be part of the fundraising processes, just be visible so that teachers become aware of you as a person.
That's very right, Elma, very right. And that's opportunities for parents to participate. There are always activities. You can support school trips, you can be part of the road patrol. So different activities, ways that you can be visible for the school and and to have your say and to for them to know you and to see what are the needs of your families and your culture as well, just bringing your cultural background.
Yeah, no, I think it's good actually. That's what I was about to not ask, but I had to touch on, because intermediate is the challenge for me. I got children, and I was also a school board for the school, and I know when it was they are in elementary how it works. One thing going into intermediate, it's just only 2 years in some schools. So the first year is just gone without you even having much. You don't know who is who, and then the second year you don't bother much, and then that's the time they just make a big difference in the kids. They are just like year 11, 12, 13, and just a lot of changes happening.
True.
And you're not coping with the school system there, and it's a bit frustrating sometimes. And I'm not even sure if they have, example, parents associations, and the communication, I found it a bit not really, when they are just low, it's really good.
That's
but once
right.
they come here, disconnect. Once they go to high school, it might change a bit.
Yeah. That's right. That's what I usually hear from parents, is that when the children are in primary school, they are very connected to the schools. They know the other parents. They know they participate. But then when they transition to intermediate and high school, that kind of connection is lost, right? So it's more difficult, but it's not impossible again. And it's again just building those connections with the teachers and finding ways that you can be part of. There is an invitation for parents, and this is also one of the main goals from my session today. It's about understanding our key role in the education of the children, and there is an expectation that we can build this partnership with the schools. It's not just the schools educating our children, it's us working together as a team to provide the best opportunities for our children. We have to be active. That's very important. Find ways that we can collaborate, that we can participate as much as we can. I know we are all working, it's additional work, sometimes we don't just want to go home and have a rest, but if there is even an invitation to school events, if you have the opportunity to go, just go, because it will help you build on those relationships that are very crucial for the education. Yeah, good. So we move briefly to the last part of the presentation. So, and this is just for you to know about the National Education and Learning Priorities. This is for all schools in New Zealand as well, NELPs, we call it NELPs, National Education and Learning Priorities. And this is to guide those who govern schools, the school boards. So while the school boards are working on the strategic plan for the school for the next year, every time they have to follow and make sure that they are actually responding to these education and learning priorities. Yes, and this is just to ensure again that every school and their children that are attending the school have an opportunity to participate into an inclusive education that is equitable, that everyone has a chance to progress and to actually achieve the best levels in terms of education. So this is about national education learning priority. So if we review this, we have 5 objectives. So the first one is for learners. Learners are at the centers. Learners with their family, with their families are at the center of the education. Again, what we say, it's all about your children, what your children needs, and how they can actually progress. Again, so they are at the center of the education. Barriers free, we want education to be accessible to everyone. That's why we have public education that is free of cost. Even though you might receive at the beginning of the year a request for a donation, do you receive like a school donation, like it's about $100? this is voluntary again. You are not obligated to pay that because the education is 100% free in the public's education. We hope to have quality teaching and leadership, so that's why there is also an organism that regulates the teachers in New Zealand, and again that they have all the certifications, and then they are able to keep on developing on their skills as well continuously. And the future of learning, which is very important, and again there is this concept of lifelong learners. So they want the children to learn for life. So they doesn't stop when they finish school or university. They continue to learn because they have this curiosity and this desire to learn. And this is what the school tried to build as well on the children. And world-class inclusive public education. So it's a world-class, something that we want to be proud of, and we are proud of, is that we have an inclusive education in New Zealand. And again, as parents, we have our say in terms of making our culture visible for the school as well, so then everyone knows what are our needs and everything. And I think this is the main part about NELPs. And then just for you to know briefly that, as I said, the Ministry of Education doesn't run school, but we provide guidance and support to the school system, which goes from primary, early childhood till secondary education. That's our part from Ministry of Education. But then tertiary education, we have another agency that is called Tertiary Education Commission, and those are the ones who work with university and all the tertiary part. And then we have different agencies that work together to support the New Zealand education system. So it's not just the ministry, it's different agencies supporting the New Zealand education for our children, okay? And last one, New Zealand education is seen as a partnership, as we discussed. Parents have a role to play in supporting the children, and very important, attendance. So your child has to attend school as much as they can, because that's the only way that they can learn and to actually progress in achieving the different standards. So that's us today. I don't know if you have any other questions before we finish.
So, okay, thank you so much. But I was just wondering if you can just briefly explain the supports that other supports the ministry offers for refugee background and migrant students, like the BSW or FFFB funding. Just briefly to explain so we know what other helps they can get.
Yeah, that's true. Very good point, Kendiel. Just briefly is that, I spoke about learning support, but also for our children that speak English as other languages, might be second, third, fourth language sometimes, but multi-language. There's also ESOL funding available, so if your children need to, to work because they're learning English or their English is not at the level expected for the, to be able to follow the content of the school, then the school can apply for an ESOL funding, and then they can get support from a teacher aide or ESOL teacher that can go and work with your children in order to support the language acquisition. So that's support that exists. And other activities, other fundings available from the ministry to support the learning of the children, and to be able that they have the support, even though there is a different language, there is support for your children to achieve that. We have bicultural support, and that is also available. So these professionals that can come and work with your children in the classroom to help them understand the content, and even to work on the homeworks, on different tasks that they may have from the school. So just in very general. But there is support as well if you feel that you need children need support with language, with English, or improving the English level. This is something that we can also discuss. There are some criteria that they have to meet, but it's also a support that is there available for the children. Any other that I mentioned?
Just to mention, might be very important point. I'm not sure what was the name, but the in-law, the ones with not documents, students who don't have documents. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Very briefly, the ones that are illegal.
So for illegal migrants, if they need to attend school, what they can do.
Yeah, because we have some families that the children, they are not residents and they don't have the paperwork, visa residency. So there is also a program that we can also discuss if that's the situation of you or of someone that you know, that they don't have the documentation, this is something that we can work on, and we can ensure that those children are actually attending schools, because we want this again to be accessible and to be there for everyone. Okay, so even if you know someone that needs that kind of support, that's also available.
Sounds good.
Sorry, just to add in terms of the children that are illegal, because it happened to us where the school requested for the visa, but back then I was a bit curious, like, oh, if you said education is compulsory, then why do you need that documentation? So is it possible? Is it something that the ministry is creating an additional work for them, or a barrier, so to say? Why don't you take out those requirements?
Yeah, so education should be available. It is available for everyone. So what the children actually need to enroll in a school is an address, New Zealand address, so that they're actually living in a place here, and then all the other requirements in terms of visa or residency, those we can work around that, because the main priority is that the children have access, if they're in school age, that they can have access to education. That shouldn't be a barrier in that case.
What I'm trying to get from here is like people who's not like legal, obviously they would be afraid to give their details because they're worried about their immigration status.
That's a very good
So that's why they're trying to prevent registering their students, children. So
that's a very good point, Kendiel. Yeah, but the main thing here is education, and if they're in school age, it is a right for them to access to it. So if you know someone, you can let me know, and then we can work on that as well. So it's not it shouldn't be a barrier, and it shouldn't be discriminated because of that. Okay.
Thanks.
Good. Any other question before we wrap up for today? No?
Will we have access to that slide?
If you want to, I can send it to you, to Eddie. I think you already have it, Eddie, right? Yeah. So you already have it.
Sweet.
Yes. And there will be more sessions, as Eddie said. This is just the beginning.
That's great.
But then the other sessions will be more. This is an overview, so it's very general, right? We've reviewed very different topics, but then we are going to go through very specific topics like New Zealand curriculum. What else do we have? NCA levels.
NCA levels, like nutrition, health and sexuality education.
Yeah.
And we're looking at hopefully trying to either have a workshop about the treaty or
true. That's very important. Yeah, that's a big one, right? The honoring the Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Maori tradition. You will see it across all schools here in New Zealand. So it's about understanding why we do it. There is a why, and it's very important for us to actually know about it. So it's going to be very interesting. So there will be 9 more sessions, as Eddie explained, and it would be great if you can come as much as you can, hopefully. Attendance is very important if you want to learn. And also, if you have friends that would like to attend, please invite them, because we want this to be, accessible and to be visible and to reach out to as many families as possible. So we would really appreciate your support with promotion as well, if you know anyone who might benefit from this. Good.
Now we can clap.
And I have something as well before I leave. This is a family planner. It's a gift for you if you want to, where you have all the year here. And this is a word planner that you can put on your wall, and then you can write, even if you have birthday that you want. It's just to help you organize and your family. And this is for you. I have many copies here. If you want to take one home or to give one to your friends, feel free to take it. It's free for you. It's a little gift from you.
That's great.
Thank you.
And speaking of gifts, I was trying to say thank you for kind of helping us out with this, and obviously being a big support of the whole program.
Thank you so much. I feel like
Just hand.
And I can't keep smiling, Wallace.
Fake smile. Thank you, Wallace. Thanks for lovely.
Let me just say something. I'll just say something. Well, on behalf of ACCW, I would really like to thank the organizing team, the education team, got two of them here, and the lady who's joined us, and of course Cinthia for giving us this presentation, which has been very useful. It was just an introduction, but we have lots of questions. And what we need to do now is to go out there, tell people how good this session was, that they need to attend the subsequent sessions because they are very important. It's for our community which is here, it's for our community which is going to be coming here, it's for our community elsewhere that is interested in New Zealand and its education system. And we also have a chance to say our say in terms of how the system runs. And if we just keep quiet and complain, that will be the end of it, we'll be just complaining. But if we take part in the system and use these other channels, which are not direct channels, to air what we feel is not getting through to the schools, we have another avenue of getting ourselves heard. So thank you very much for making time to come here today. And we hope to see you for another
next week.
9
sessions.
Yeah, three more. Oh no, 2 more this term, and hopefully, obviously, we've got. Yeah, I guess in terms of information to pass on as well, we are looking at we've budgeted to help people with any travel or transport kind of support, and we'll obviously have the children's session and hopefully getting the youth session up and running in the next couple of weeks as well. So, whole family. Make a day of it. And obviously, and just before we've got a bit of food as well, and what we'll do is I'll bring the kids back up, and then everyone has a bit of lunch, and then we can head home from here.
Thank you everyone.
Yeah, thanks. The session was quite enlightening, quite a lot to learn about the New Zealand education system. I think a takeaway for me is really the point about engaging more with the teachers, just opening communication channels with the teachers, really communicating what you think is best for your kid and working out a way of achieving it together. Above all, thanks so much to the officials from the Ministry of Education and to the African community for putting this together for us.
It was amazing. It was a success. We just got to know everybody, and it was a really lovely session, and hopefully all our next sessions are going to be like this.